Well, welcome everyone. My name is Adam Cross. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, and today I have the privilege of being with Danielle Enriquez. And Danielle, anything you want people to know about you? Any fun facts? But also, yeah, just a little bit about yourself.
That, well, gosh, let's see. Well, I'm 31 years old. I live in Bakersfield, California. So the Central Valley definitely has such a special place in my heart, born and raised here. Um, Obviously, too, my faith is very important to me, born and raised in the Catholic faith into a Catholic family, which I'm super grateful for. Um, I guess is the fun fact, kind of funny, but probably spend way too much money on buying coffee like out throughout the week. But hey, I love it. It's just like such a fun little treat. But yeah, that's a little, those are some little fun facts about me.
Awesome, awesome, yeah. And I forget what's your favorite coffee shop in Bakersfield? I think you told me that, but do
Oh
you have a
my
favorite one?
gosh. Well, I used to have a favorite, but it
Okay,
kind of went a little
it's
rogue.
fallen from
But
grace.
fallen from grace. That's the way to say
Yeah.
it. But my new favorite, oh my gosh, it's so great. I love it. Big shout out to Beanies in Bakersfield, California.
Okay.
Like a little beanie hat, is like
Oh yeah.
name.
Nice.
And oh my gosh, I'm assuming he's the owner. He's like so nice and so sweet. And I literally walk in the coffee shop. I'm like, hi, hello. I was like, I'll take the huge. And
That's
he
cool.
already knows. It's great. So yeah,
That's
that's
cool.
that's how often I go.
Yeah. So you got your spot. It's kind of
I've got
sounds
my
like
spot.
a
That's
Cheers
great.
vibe. Like they know you
Oh my gosh, I know.
and your
So,
order.
so sweet. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
That's
And he
cool.
roasts his own beans. Like that's what I love even more.
Nice. Okay, beanies. I'll have to check that out sometime. And if anyone is ever in Bakersfield, there's a there's a
Yes.
spot. Yeah. Awesome. Well, and too, I want to add that for anyone listening or watching, Danielle was one of the first associates to reach out to me to be a supervisor a few years ago, and really kind of what led to what is now the Catholic Therapy Center. Because originally it was just me in private practice, and then you reached out, and Claire, and now other associates, and so my practice has morphed into this group practice that's launching a group practice of Catholic therapists. So thanks, Daniel, for being
Gosh, no,
kind of
thank you,
initiator
Adam.
with that. It's
Let
like,
me
hey, there's a
tell
need for this. So yeah,
Absolutely. No, I just like thank you, Adam, for like having me. Like truly, like it has been like one of the most like joyful places that I can like work at, quite frankly. Like just
oh, wow.
just to like be myself, like as a not only as a human being, but like as a clinician too, like knowing that, there's going to be no sort of like repercussions for implementing the faith into session.
Yeah,
So it's just like such a peace of mind and such a
yeah,
good thing.
yeah. That's huge. That we can show up with we are noticeably Catholic in our foundation and in our understanding of who the human person is and what healing looks like. And I always talking with people, especially graduates or students that are in graduate programs to be therapists. They're like, how do you do that? Because a lot of my graduate programs really emphasize like, don't bring yourself into therapy and don't bring your value, like kind of be that blank slate. But what I always kind of encourage people with is, as Catholic therapists, we're not coming into therapy like praying a rosary or like let's talk about the catechism, but like we're really meeting people where they're at, and we advertise as Catholic because if they want to bring that in, we're there, right? But as you know too, if we have clients that don't want to bring faith in,
Hmm.
and we meet them where they're at, and it's not like we're
Absolutely.
like, no, it's time to time to
Yeah.
evangelize. Ethically, we're aware of what's needed, but
Hmm.
so many people see that foundation, and it's like, oh, this person understands my Catholic faith, and I don't have to explain why I go to confession or why I pray the rosary or what
Absolutely.
discernment is. So that foundation helps so much, and just an understanding of God's plan for healing is huge. So yeah,
Exactly.
I'm so happy to be kind of surrounded and even kind of growing in this community of other Catholic clinicians who
Absolutely.
provide that. So
Mhm.
and so happy you're on board
Mm.
and you're licensed, right? So
Yeah.
you were an associate working on hours. Now you're fully licensed and you're here and
Oh, praise be
um,
God. Let me tell you, praise be God. All the glory and honor to God. It was a long
yeah,
journey.
yeah, yeah. It is. Yeah, it is. And so maybe that's a good segue. I don't know. There's certain connection between what we're talking about with even just like working on hours and maybe personal experiences. Um, but today I know we want to talk about anxiety and acceptance. And so I guess even maybe to kick that off for you, why is that a topic on your heart? Is there anything that's drawing, that
Yeah.
to you, or drawing you to that? But yeah,
Such a great question. Gosh, I feel like, wow, where do I even begin? Where do I even begin? Quite
yeah,
frankly, gosh, anxiety, like I was, again, is my own anxiety, like trying to prepare for this like podcast, and
yeah.
like kind of having some bullet points, but I was just like looking up some statistics, yesterday. And this one comes, is it from the, oh gosh, Anxiety and Depression Association of America?
Mm,
And basically, I have it right here. Let me see. It says like over 40 million adults age 18 and up like
mm,
suffer with anxiety every year.
mm.
I think that's like very worth repeating. Like again, from the Anxiety and Depression Association of America. So again, might be biased a
Yeah,
little bit,
yeah,
but still,
yeah.
over 40 million adults age 18 and up will be like struggling with anxiety. Like
Mm,
that's a lot of people.
yeah.
And odds are probably not even like half or
Mm-hmm,
maybe even a third. I mean, who knows, aren't even probably reaching out for help. So
mm-hmm,
we know that there's a great need there, obviously. But really,
yeah.
like, I think my passion, like, for helping folks, like, with anxiety, quite frankly, like, as I think most things for a lot of people come from own personal experience.
Mm-hmm,
And so, without like getting like too much into the nitty gritty, but my own life was very much impacted by anxiety, and I think this part is worth saying because I mean, who knows, like, who also needs to hear this? But I was in graduate school, and I think I've like told you this story a little bit before, Adam, but my friends, like, I love them so much, and they graciously sat me down and said, Danielle, like, I don't think like you're living like your life as it should be in the
mm-hmm.
sense that, my anxiety, like, really like impaired a lot of my functioning, kind of to use that like
Oh,
DSM language, my anxiety like impaired a lot of my functioning, like in different areas too. And
mm,
I wasn't like living the life of abundance that I know that God had like created me to live and created everybody to live.
mm-hmm,
And I'll never forget, like I said, well, Danielle, have you ever considered therapy? And I was like, oh my gosh, like I don't even know what that is, quite frankly. Like I know what it is, but I've never like really thought about that for me.
yeah.
Um, and so I live at home with my parents. And so I literally remember walking over to my parents' room and saying, like, hey, mom, like, you know, Aubrey and Emily just told me that, I should consider therapy. And my mom, again, like, so I know someone needs to hear this, was like, well, Danielle, isn't that only, for white people? As we are Hispanic, we are a proud Mexican American family here.
Mm,
And I was like, well, gosh, mom, your guess is as good as mine, like how am I
yeah.
supposed to know?
Yeah.
And so I just remember, yeah, like my mom like taking me to our primary care doctor. And yeah, she was able to really kind of like catapult like
Mm-hmm,
that area of my life, like it, so I could seek help. And boy,
mm-hmm.
oh boy, am I so glad that I did because I mean, it literally led me to being a therapist myself. Like
Yeah.
before all of this, like I really thought I was like going to go into like become a broadcaster. Like that's what I had
Yeah.
hoped and I had dreamed
Mm,
about, but as everything with God is, he's got much greater plans for us. And,
yeah.
I'm so glad that things happened the way that they did. Were they painful? 100%. Do I still struggle with
Mm,
things? Absolutely. But again, there's something about like allowing, like my brokenness to like help and heal like the brokenness of other people.
Hmm.
And if anything, it really allows me like a great sensitivity and like a great compassion for the people on the other side, of that virtual
Yeah.
couch, so to say.
Hmm.
Because it's scary. It's scary to reach out to therapy. I mean, or to a therapist. Like, who knows what sort of like cultural kind of like stigmas might be there, what kind of other potential barriers might be there. And so, quite
Yeah.
frankly, when anybody reaches out to me or to any therapist at all, like, what an act of courage, like what an act
Hmm.
of bravery that is. Like their
Hmm.
anxiety to some
Yeah.
extent probably told them, don't do it. Like it's easier
Hmm.
just to live the way that you are. And again, that's
Hmm.
the avoidance component. Like anxiety,
Yeah.
like there's one thing I tell my clients, anxiety thrives off of avoidance. And let
Yeah.
me tell you, I've been so avoidant in my entire life. But I'm trying to work on that. So
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing it. Yeah. And I mean, what good friends to sit you down and be like,
good
hey,
friends. Oh my gosh.
we're
I love
worried about you
them.
because life could be more. And
Absolutely.
we want that for you. And that you receive that
Yeah.
with love and you're like, okay, what do I need to do here? And that even your mom's response, it's like, I don't
God bless my
know.
mom.
But she still was like, well, what help can I get you? And it sounds like
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, a
that
hundred
still led
percent.
to therapy for you.
100%.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Wow. And then here you
Absolutely.
are as a therapist years later.
I know it's so crazy. Like full circle, God is like so good. Like I'll never forget
Wow.
my first therapist.
Hmm.
Oh my gosh, she was just such a sweet person. Like, and it's interesting because I was trying to look for like a Catholic therapist myself. I was like, I don't know, maybe my search engines weren't good or something, but I know,
Yeah.
I literally found she wasn't Catholic, but she
Hmm.
was a very devout Christian woman,
Yeah.
and like she helped me significantly
Hmm.
like get from at
That's
least
good.
point A to point like A and a half, and from A and a half to point B, and it was
Nice.
great.
Yeah.
And she showed me such compassion and quite frankly, like the
Hmm.
love of God, you know? And
Yeah.
I remember learning in grad school that, we could practice this modality, that modality, but
Hmm.
at the end of the day, like none of that matters unless that therapeutic alliance is really there.
Hmm.
And that is so
Yeah.
critical
Yeah.
because like, my own anxiety could say, gosh, am I doing this intervention right? Am I doing that intervention right? But at the end of the day, if they don't trust me or if they don't have that rapport with me, then it doesn't
Hmm.
matter what intervention I'm
Yeah.
doing because it's not going to resonate or it's not going to stick with them because it's like, well, how do I know Danielle in a way is kind of like willing my good,
Yeah.
And
Yeah. That's so good.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So all that to say, my first therapist, great impression,
Hmm.
such an impact, so much so that again, here I am today too.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. And you mentioned too, like how many people are struggling with anxiety. And it's funny because I just gave a talk last night in our
Oh,
diocese on anxiety, and so I
oh,
was part of
fun. Like,
timing worked out. We didn't plan this, but
oh,
yeah. But I was thinking, I was looking at those criteria for generalized anxiety disorder. Right, it's like that excessive worry,
yes.
thoughts
Mhm.
for six or
Mhm.
6 months or more, and like fatigue or trouble eating, or
Sleeping or
yeah,
the
sleeping.
somatic symptoms are so huge,
Yeah,
at least for me, and I know a lot of other people too.
yeah. And I kind of even in my talk, I kind of jokingly go through those symptoms because I'm like, if we look at these, like how many of these apply to us, like to the average
100%.
person, it's huge, right? Like most people will be like, oh man, that might be me. Um, and even yeah, the somatic side, like the physical side, anxiety manifests so physically, and that's one thing I like to emphasize too is we're body, mind, and soul, and so what affects one affects the other. Um, and even in my experience, especially in college, like you were sharing too, like I had high anxiety and I felt it in my body. Like I was so restless. And I remember
A
sitting in like
hundred
college
percent.
classes and being like, I have to get out. Like I can't sit here.
Oh, oh
Like
my
running to
God.
the bathroom as a place to like just like a random class that I was like, I'm not okay being
We are
in.
the same. We are one and the same because let me tell you, I had a professor. in school, and I had him for multiple classes. He like taught multiple classes, and I'll never forget. I think it was like the second or third class I took with him, and he's like, "Oh, Danielle, the one who sits by the door," and I'm like,
Ah, shoot.
"Okay, call me out there in front of everybody, but you know what? That's right, sir. I do
Oh,
sit by the door. I'm gonna
here's
own it.
why.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm gonna own it." And you know what? Because
Oh
that's for the
man.
exact same reason. Like, oh my
Wow.
gosh, I had a lot of tummy issues when I was
Yeah,
in
yeah.
college. And looking back, I'm like, gosh, that was totally anxiety.
Yeah.
Totally
Yeah.
anxiety. Like, I mean, this is a lot, but I think again, some people might
Hmm.
relate to this. But
Yeah.
when I was in college, like the GI doctor, I was going to him, quite frankly, a lot.
Yeah.
You know, I remember like, gosh, it's like a lot. I've had a colonoscopy already. I
Yeah.
had the endoscopy, or however you properly pronounce
Yeah.
it. Like,
Yeah.
and those were also very like traumatizing experiences,
Yeah.
quite
Yeah.
frankly.
Procedures.
Um,
Wow.
and so
Hmm.
it was a lot. And again, they didn't necessarily find too much, but
Hmm.
honestly, I would argue looking back at it, it was totally anxiety, you know, with that
Yeah.
strong like mind gut connection.
Yep. And I hear that all the time. And even when I was working as a youth minister, there were a number of teens, especially teenage girls, who would kind of just come to me and say, I don't think I can eat gluten anymore. Like I'm having these like really big reactions to it. And some of them went on years later and now they're fine. Like there was an intolerant, like you said, like GI issues that they were, and I remember talking to these teens and I'm like, your schedules are so busy. Like you have no time to rest. Like I was stressed hearing about every extracurricular they were signed up for,
Oh
and their
my God.
bodies were like screaming at them, like stop.
Yeah.
And then even knowing some of them years later, it's like it's different. They've been able to regulate. They've been able to slow down, and they're not
Yeah.
having the same stomach issues. And I relate to that too. Yeah, my body was just like, get out of here. Let's find an excuse to like almost like your body's saying, look at me, like look at us,
Yes.
like please.
Yes.
And that kind of goes into the avoidance piece. So maybe
A hundred
that's
percent. I was like, as I'm hearing you say that,
yeah,
I'm like, oh my gosh, I've been there. I lived that. And at
yeah,
times I still do,
yeah,
you know?
yeah, yeah. So how does can we make that connection for people? Is how do you see or what's this relationship with anxiety between avoidance and acceptance? Like, what are they opposites? How does that work? Why is acceptance the goal? And what does that look like?
Absolutely. Well, gosh. So in if I guess like in simplest forms, you know, I don't know, some I guess I would say, you know, like
Yeah,
avoidance like is a way to like relieve. And I'm putting relieve in air quotes because it's not really relief.
yeah,
You know, it's really that kind of temporary relief. And acceptance is kind of like, in a way, kind of channeling my inner Gottman here, but it's like that's kind of like the antidote, you know, to the avoidance, is if we can accept what we're experiencing. You know, there's kind of really like a cycle of avoidance, so to say, you know, so it's like something that makes us anxious, we're gonna avoid it. It's gonna provide relief for us, and then that relief is gonna kind of soon really lead to further feelings of like intensification. You know, intensification basically meaning like, well, okay, the more I avoid it, like the better I feel. But I mean, quite frankly, there's only so many things that you can avoid, you know?
yeah,
And I was listening to a podcast on anxiety, and the person on it, he shared that he had had a client who literally stood in his house, never left his house for like a good significant amount of time. Now, I don't know. I don't know if my ears were hearing wrong, but I swear the guy said like 20 plus years.
yeah,
And I'm like, that's unbelievable, you know, because that life of just like, there's nothing wrong with like living in your house. I mean, obviously, but you want to like go out and like do
yeah,
things, you know, live out your values, you know, if like serving others is super important to you, then you want to do that. Or if building community or whatever other value it might be, like perhaps, I don't know, maybe it's like you want to be in a relationship, like, well, you got to go out and meet people, like, oh, you
yeah,
know, God's just not going to drop it from the sky, you know? at your front door. I mean, maybe, I don't know, but it hasn't happened for me. And that's okay. But yeah, like again, there's like a lot of comfort in that avoidance. And again, kind of really speaking for myself,
Yeah.
my avoidance, it was about driving. I experienced my very first panic attack when I was in the car. And I wasn't even driving. My parents were. Like they had picked me up from school because I was going to a wedding. I was going to one of my cousin's weddings that weekend. And I just was like, oh my gosh, like what is happening to me? Like again, speaking of those somatic symptoms, like what was the first thing that I noticed? Oh gosh, like my lips are starting to go numb. I was like,
Yeah.
okay, well, Danielle, what is that? And then all of a sudden, that like numbness and tingling sensation, just quite frankly, like migrated throughout my entire body. Like, I know it sounds extreme, but
Yeah.
I literally remember like my parents, like my mom yelling at my dad, like, Joe, pull over, and we
Yeah.
were in the grapevine, when this happened. And so like that grapevine is kind of like a little mountainous terrain where it's like between like Los Angeles and then Kern County. And so I went to school in LA, so my parents had to pick me up and drive me home. So we had to go through there. And I remember my mom, she called 911.
Wow. Oh man.
And I
That's
just
scary.
remember my mom being on the phone and my dad had pulled over at a gas station. And my mom just ran inside the store and she's on the phone with like the dispatcher. And I just remember my dad like getting out of the front seat, coming into the back with me. And we were just like praying together. Like it was just like a repeat of like our fathers and Hail Marys together. And my dad, I just remember him like just like holding me and like hugging me. And like I'm literally just like
Whoa.
shaking,
Yeah.
at this
Yeah.
point. And like this
Wow.
is so bad, but I remember my hands like my body had literally went like so numb. I'm sure there's probably like a proper term for that. Um, but I couldn't even like open my hands. Like
Yeah.
they were like completely like shut. Like I was completely like didn't have any control. And it's so crazy because this is totally anxiety. The only thing I was thinking about is, well, okay, if I die, who's gonna write my paper, my theology paper? That's all I was thinking about. I was like, oh my gosh. And so
Oh
friends,
man.
that definitely is anxiety at its finest. And so ever since then, like I was always scared to drive on the freeway. I remember I would drive myself back to school in the Grapevine, but then after I graduated from school, like I felt nervous again on the freeway. So what did I do? I was like, I'm just not going to drive on the freeway. And then sure enough, I was like, I'm just going to take the side roads. I'm going to take the side roads everywhere. I'm like, Bakersfield isn't that big. Like, I'm sure I could get, from point A to point B. Took me a heck of a lot longer, but I was able to
Yeah.
get there. And then all of a sudden, I experienced this panic sensation again while even on the side streets. And so at that point, I was like, you know what? I'm only experiencing anxiety in the car. I'm just not
Yeah.
going to drive. I'm literally going to like just cut out driving from my life. And again, if you live in Bakersfield, if you're from Bakersfield, or if you live in the Central Valley, you kind of have to drive everywhere. It's not like very so quote like metropolises like
Yeah.
LA or San Francisco, where you just walk or take public transportation. I mean, you could, but it's not quite ideal, especially in the hot summers here.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, and so yeah, pinpoint back, that's really where Emily and Aubrey really stepped in and said, hey, like,
Got it.
didn't know
Yeah.
like you are not living. Like my sweet dad, God bless him. Oh my gosh, God bless him. He
Yeah.
would take me everywhere.
Oh
Once he
man.
would get off of work, if I had to go somewhere like AKA therapy, my
Yeah.
dad would take me.
Wow.
Or if I had to go somewhere for like church, like my dad would take me. Or, my sweet friend Aubrey or Emily, they would take me places too. And again, like it was just so much like my life was so impaired. It was it was comfortable. It was absolutely comfortable for me because I wasn't
Wow.
experiencing that anxiety.
Yeah.
But again, hindsight's 2020. Praise be God for that.
Yeah.
And now I can say like, wow, Danielle, yeah, like I was absolutely not living. Like, praise be God for Aubrey and Emily calling me out,
Yeah.
illuminating that blind spot. Because they were able to see things that I couldn't. And God bless my parents. I just think they didn't really know what to do. I mean, quite
Yeah.
frankly.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
that avoidance, it really keeps you in a state of relief, But again, it only intensifies the fear. That's why one of the best things to do with anxiety is to really kind of have someone engage in those slow exposures. But before we do that exposure work, one key component is acceptance,
Hmm.
is acceptance. And I really want to make something clear. Like, acceptance is not agreeing. It just means like we're making room.
Hmm.
Like we're giving permission for that feeling to like be here. We're not trying to push it away. We're not trying to like avoid it like the plague. We're just saying, you know what? This is uncomfortable. I don't really like what I'm feeling, but I can like give myself permission to acknowledge what's here, to accept what's here without having to fight it.
Hmm.
You
Yeah.
know, and there's a lot of power in that. And again, I speak from my own experience. There's a lot of power in that. Like, Danielle, like, I'm in the car. Something might happen to me, but I can accept that because
Yeah.
something could happen to me, even if I didn't have anxiety. Like, and
Hmm.
someone else is like on the car. I mean, you never know. I don't know what the
Yeah.
statistics are for like freeway or highway safety, but
Yeah.
anything can happen to anyone at any time. And I think that's
Yeah.
really the reality that we kind of really have to live in too.
Hmm. Yeah.
But that's really where faith comes in.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Emmanuel, God with us, and praise be God for
mm,
that.
yeah. And I was hearing, even making that connection, your dad's reaction to you having a panic attack, of just like him holding you, and like how beautiful that is, and like praying with you, and the acceptance piece, kind of making this connection with faith, is that your dad wasn't saying, Danielle, snap out of it. He wasn't saying, yeah, he
Ah!
wasn't trying to like bring you back. He's not shaking you. He's like, get over this. We got to keep going. But that can be our internal response to anxiety a lot of the time. Is like, get over it. Why am I feeling this way? Stop feeling this way. But with your dad as an example, there, it's, can we imitate the love, the compassion of the Father, right? That God has for us in the midst of our anxiety, and God wants to hold us. He doesn't want us to just kind of push through. Oftentimes, He actually wants us to slow down and to be present with Him. And
Oh
so, if we can imitate that internally with ourselves and say, yeah, I'm afraid of driving, and that's a valid fear, and this is scary, and I can have compassion to myself amidst this struggle. That is, like you're saying, like this beginning point to healing. It's like, well, if I can accept that it's there, and I can accept that it's okay that it's there, and I can be compassionate to myself amidst that struggle, well,
yeah.
now I can get help. Now I can talk about it. Now I can
Absolutely.
use tools
Absolutely.
because I'm
Mhm.
accepting that that's a thing, and it's not something I'm just trying to say get over, right? Because if it's something to get over, you don't have really any tools. You just have to get over it. You have to keep going. But to
Mm,
slow down to accept it means, oh, now I have options to help this, right? And
that's right.
I like the example of like a little kid who's afraid of the dark as well. It's like,
Mm.
we could just tell a kid like get over it and just go to sleep, right? And but they're still scared. They're still
Absolutely.
alone and scared, versus saying, okay, why are you afraid of the dark? Like, it is
Mm.
scary. Like I
Yeah.
get it. What's going to help here? Right? So
Mm.
it doesn't seem like a big shift, but that compassion piece is a big shift as you accept it. It's like, yeah, it's here and that's okay. Now, how can we help this? Um, but
Mhm.
what does that look like maybe in therapy? Maybe, I don't know if in your own experience or just kind of how you approach it as a therapist. How do you help clients accept accept anxiety, and then where do you go from there? Like, what helps next?
Gosh, such a big question, such a hard
Yeah.
question. But hey, that's why we've got therapy. Yeah, acceptance, quite frankly, it's a journey. It's a journey. I'm
Yeah.
thinking about something, you're like, we can't go around it. We can't go around the anxiety. We can't go around the emotion. Like, quite frankly, we really have to go through it. We have to, and one way of going through it is by acceptance. But acceptance is just one component. You
Mhm.
know, that's why I really love, cute little plug here, acceptance and commitment therapy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really, Okay, so don't quote me, but I'm pretty sure. So Stephen Hayes is the one who created acceptance and commitment therapy. And he created it because of his own struggles with panic, his own
Mm,
struggles with anxiety. And so I'm like, wow, see, again, anxiety is just so common and so prevalent. But what I love about acceptance and commitment therapy is kind of like this whole premise of like psychological flexibility.
mm,
And psychological flexibility, if I could sum it up, is like, how can I be comfortable with being uncomfortable? And so acceptance and commitment therapy provides kind of like these six variables. But the ones that I really like to focus on, I mean, they're all super great. Like they all obviously work cohesively together. But one is acceptance, the other is diffusion, which I'll explain a little bit, and then the other is values.
mm,
And I know it kind of seems like oversimplified, but the reality is like I don't know, maybe like it really is that simple.
mm.
If we can accept something, one of the first kind of like example interventions that I like to do with clients is it's called like pushing away paper. So I like to have them, get or like a heavy object, or ideally it's a heavy object, or I mean could be a book, could be a piece of paper, and the first thing I have them do is like hold it up like super close to their like mouth and their nose, and like the paper like is the problem, or the book or the heavy object is the problem. And then I'm like, try talking to me, and it's like, well, Danielle, it's kind of weird. Like, I've got this paper in front of you. Like, I can't see you. And so I'm like, well, great. That's exactly what I wanted you to say. Because that's exactly how it is. When we focus on the problem, when we focus on the anxiety, when we focus on the avoidance, like that's all we're seeing. That's all we're living. We're not able to see everything else around us. And it makes it
Yeah.
difficult for us to
Mm,
even see clearly.
mhm,
So then the next thing is so having the client kind of keeping it close to their face, then I'm going to have them like extend their arms out
mhm.
forward, still holding that paper.
Yeah.
And I'm like, try talking to me now. They're like, well, Danielle, it's like a little bit easier. But then again, like if they're holding a heavy object or even say something about light as a feather, like you
Mhm.
can really only hold that posture of like trying to push something away for so long. Like
Yeah.
you're eventually, your arms are going to tire out. You're going to
Mhm.
get fatigued. This
Yeah.
is a prime example of me pushing away the driving. Anxiety, driving, I don't like it. I'm just going to stop doing it. I'm going to push it away. I have a car, I'm not going to use it. Or if I have a
Mhm.
car, other people are going to drive it?
Yeah.
And so again, that can only last for so long. And so then that last part, what I like to tell them to, a part of this exercise is, well, I want you to put the paper or whatever object they have in their lap
Mhm.
and then talk to me. And they're like,
Yeah.
well, Danielle, I could talk to you. It's a lot easier. Like they're not pushing
Mhm.
anything away. Like they're not being fatigued or in any way, shape, or form. Like they could see me clearly. The problem is still there. The
Mhm.
anxiety or whatever it is still there. But you're able to interact with other people clearly. You're able to see what's around you. You're able to live your life. And that's really another key component. The reality is we don't want to get rid of anxiety. Like
Mhm.
anxiety is actually really great,
Yeah.
because it helps to keep us safe. It's like
Mhm.
a protective factor. Like if something's there, like if there's a bear outside of my door, another common thing I like to share with my clients, and I'm going to say, well, I'm going to stay inside. Like, I want
Yeah.
to be
Yeah.
safe. But like sometimes that kind of like hyper arousal response is going off even when it kind of really shouldn't be.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so what we have to do is we have to really change the relationship that we
Mhm.
have with our anxiety. We have to change the relationship that we have with our thoughts. That's really where diffusion then comes in.
Mhm.
Diffusion is basically, am I fused,
Mhm.
onto these unhelpful thoughts, whether it's like, what if this happens? What if I fail? What if I mess up? Or what if everybody laughs at me? Or am I going to kind of defuse myself from those thoughts of like, okay, like I recognize that I'm not perfect and
Mm.
people make
Yeah.
mistakes. Like, look, I mean, even as I'm saying that to you, I kid you not, I feel freer. Like I feel
Yeah.
lighter. Like even just saying that, like there's like a heaviness, like in like a physical
Mhm.
heaviness of like, well, what if they laugh at me? Or what if they do this compared to
Yeah.
like if they laugh at me, like that's okay. Like
Mhm.
I'm still a beloved daughter of God.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
That's great.
that's also, I think, kind of where the faith component comes in too, of recognizing like anxiety wants to tell you a bunch of lies
Mhm.
potentially too.
Yeah.
It's up to us as people of faith to really ground ourselves in our true identity
Mhm.
and knowing that that will never be shaken.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
thanks be to God for that.
Yeah. That's great. That's an awesome image. Of kind of like the heavy object, and I've used that too a little bit, variations, and I think it helps. Yeah, it's we can't get rid of anxiety completely
Mhm.
because we live in a broken world, and we actually have to protect ourselves. We need
100%.
boundaries. We don't
Hmm.
live in creation as God originally intended it, right? So we that
Absolutely.
anxiety is normal. It's actually
Hmm.
helpful. We, like you said, we have to change our relationship with it,
Hmm.
and that's huge. Recognizing that your anxiety has a role in your life, because
Absolutely.
people who don't have fear, they're they're not safe. We're like, hey, I'm gonna put my hand on this hot stove, right?
Oh
Or
my
I'm
gosh.
gonna step off this, tall, whatever. You
Exactly. In
need
fact,
fear. Fear is revealing to you, and I think this is helpful. Is fear and anxiety reveals the values that God has placed on our hearts, right? Things that we need to protect, things that we need to guard, things that could be threatened, right? I mean, think about a parent who has no fear for their child's well-being.
yeah.
That's not a healthy parent, right? So the goal is never to get rid of it,
Hmm.
but it is to change how we view it, and to even, like you're saying, and maybe this goes deeper too, is to understand, where did I learn to protect myself in that way, right? Or, okay, I'm really afraid people could laugh at me, so I'm going to change how I act. And part of that is recognizing, okay, I like reframing, like, I'm a beloved child of God, and this is my dignity in God alone. And also seeking to understand, where did I learn that people could laugh at me, right? That sounds like a real experience. Like, oh, maybe that's a wound. Maybe that was a traumatic memory that
Hmm.
now I can look at in therapy and reprocess and come to, understand better as an adult with the light of Christ. So that acceptance piece, there's so many layers to that. It's accepting it, like you're saying, defusing it, separating,
Hmm.
and then asserting values, asserting beliefs of, well, this is what is true. But
Absolutely.
then also that potential to go deeper, to validate.
Hmm.
This is why I do fear this. This is valid, and here's how I can seek to heal that or understand that in a different way. Um,
Absolutely.
so that's, I mean, yeah, it's such a big step, right? If we don't accept, we can't do that deeper work. We can't
Exactly.
transform it. And I like what you said earlier. Avoidance is comfortable for a time,
Absolutely.
right?
For a
There's,
time. Key
yeah,
emphasis and highlight, bold,
not forever.
underline, for a time.
Yeah, because if you don't leave your house for 20 years, there are many comforts you're giving up, right? Many
Absolutely.
things that you're giving up, but there is, and the goal isn't to just be uncomfortable, right? But it is, it's kind of like exercising, where there's some soreness. I'm stretching myself to be able to do more, to be able
Mhm.
to be more fulfilled, to have more purpose, which takes that
Absolutely.
discomfort.
Yeah. Which that kind of really also leads to into values as well. Like there's another intervention in ACT, and it's called the choice point diagram. So the choice point diagram, so think about like two like arrows kind of like shooting in like a V direction. And so the starting point is like whatever decision you're facing. I mean, who knows whether it's like, should I go, like I'll use myself for example. Should I go driving today? You know? And then on one side I have a value of like I want to, you know, be a servant to other people. Like I want to serve others. I want to like find joy. I want to like, be around my friends and family. And then on the other side of that arrow, we have like are not that basically not our values. And so if I'm fused, so kind of think of the line point of that arrow like as what thoughts that you're fused onto. And then the other line is like diffusion. Like if we're defused from those unhelpful thoughts that are like, well, if should I go driving today? Or what if this goes wrong? Or what if that goes wrong? Well, the reality is I don't know what's going to go wrong.
Yeah.
But the truth is the certainty, again, that's another thing, and that could be
Hmm.
a whole other topic in and of itself, is like
Yeah.
the intolerance of uncertainty
Yeah.
in anxiety is anything can happen to anyone, whether they have a fear of driving or not,
Hmm.
you
Yeah.
know? And so if I can recognize that, if I can accept it, and if I can accept that, yeah, God is with me always,
Yeah.
and firmly believe that, then it's going to allow me to live out my values of, helping to teach, OCIA or helping to,
Yeah. Yeah.
serve my fellow brother or sister in Christ,
Hmm. Yeah.
compared to if I refuse onto, well, what if I don't even make it out of the house? Or what if I don't do this? Or what
Yeah.
if this goes wrong? Then, oh my gosh, like what a place of fear. And then you're not even going to live out the values.
Hmm.
Like you just might be like that one poor guy, where he didn't leave his house for a good number of years.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so recognizing, I'm so sorry, I just want to say
No,
this
go
too.
for it. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you've got the choice. And I think
Yeah.
that's the really empowering point too of acceptance and commitment therapy, even therapy in general. Like
Hmm.
I tell my clients, I could tell you, I'm not telling you what to do. Like, that's not my business. That's not my
Hmm.
job. I can encourage you what to do, but you get to make that decision on your own. And it's so empowering when, I see clients really challenging their own thoughts,
Yeah.
challenging their own fears and saying, you know what, Danielle, I was thinking about you and what you said. I'm like, yes, I'm in their head. I'm in their head because let me tell you, my own
Yeah.
therapist was in my
Yeah.
head, and she
Mm.
still kind of is,
Yeah. Yeah.
my very first one. And
Mm.
it's a powerful place to be because yeah, we recognize that we're the ones to make the choice.
Hmm.
And, kind of maybe perhaps even like a simpler way of explaining this is like a metaphor too of like it comes from ACT is, we don't have any control over the weather. We don't
Mm.
have any control over what's going to happen to us, but we do have control over how we choose to respond. And
Yeah.
I think that right there is so empowering.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. That's so good. And our faith, and the Catechism talks about how we are called to cultivate an interior life and to be and I forget the exact wording on this, but essentially to be present with ourselves,
Mhm.
and to reflect and to to notice what is going on in our thoughts and in our emotions
Yeah.
and and distractions of the world take us away from that, and they take us away from our thoughts. And so if we don't slow down into that, we can easily be avoiding, right? If we
Mhm.
or all we can be doing is avoiding if we're not
Yeah,
looking at
exactly.
our internal experiences and say, what are those thoughts that are guiding my behavior? What are those fears? Because anxiety really likes to kind of get us stuck in the weeds. It really likes to be super focused on, okay, but what if this happens? And like you're saying,
Exactly.
we forget the bigger picture. We forget the bigger value or purpose of, well, no,
Hmm.
this is actually what I want. So even taking a step back and saying, yeah, that is scary. I could get in a car accident, but I also want to go be active in ministry. And
Yes,
so,
exactly.
what am I willing to do, and what discomfort can I take on with support, with validation, compassion, to
Absolutely.
take steps towards that end goal?
Hmm.
I think Stephen Covey has that, 7 habits of highly effective people, of
Yes.
starting with the end goal in mind. So, keeping in
Mhm.
mind what is that end goal, not getting stuck in the weeds of anxiety, because anxiety loves certainty,
It
and
totally does. It
there's
wants
so many
all the certainty
things.
in the world.
Yeah, and there's so many things we can't have certainty with, right?
Exactly.
There's probably
Exactly.
more things than not that we can, we're not gonna
That's
have
right.
certainty with.
Hmm.
So that acceptance piece is huge, and
Hmm.
even secular society kind of echoes that, and with kind of modern day 12-step programs, it's like I'm surrendering to God that I can't control everything, right? And that we might hear that with addiction, but that's also true with our anxiety. It's in our daily lives. I can't control everything that happens to me today. Am I
Hmm.
still choosing to trust in the Lord? And that doesn't mean we're not validating our fears. That doesn't mean we're not, we don't have tools to help with anxiety, but it does come back to that relationship. I think that is really big.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
with all this, we're touching upon it, is this reminder of being grounded in a baptismal identity, right? It's You are a beloved son. You're a
Mhm.
beloved daughter of the Father, and He is well pleased with you, right? And
Mhm.
that can be hard to believe, right? That can be
Absolutely.
so
Oh my
even
God.
even that alone is worth. Okay, I'm anxious hearing God is pleased with me. No, He's not. Here's all the reasons He can't be, right? It's like,
Oh
okay,
gosh, oh gosh.
that alone is enough to be like, okay, let me accept what thoughts am I entertaining about myself? What anxieties do I have that I have to perform or earn God's love?
Hmm. Oh
What can
my
I take
gosh.
into therapy
Hmm.
and
Exactly.
to look at in regards to that? But that's a huge part of this with our anxiety is okay, I'm afraid, I'm not certain, but do I have a loving Father in heaven that is certain, that does have a
Absolutely.
plan, and can I take these steps towards healing, pick up the
Hmm.
tools He's given me to navigate my anxiety?
Absolutely.
It's a big place to start. But
Hmm.
man, well, I love the tools that you're sharing. It's so helpful, especially with from the ACT perspective, kind of getting a taste of what you bring into therapy with your clients as well. That's huge. But before we were wrapping up here, any last thoughts? Anything you want people to know? Or any last points that you're like, I really want people to understand.
Ooh, gosh, there's just so many. I mean, maybe a part two would be necessary.
Mm-hmm. Let's do
But
it.
I just oh, absolutely. Let me know when and where. Um, but yeah, just one thing that's just like also really coming up to me too is like, you know, obviously we're in the season of Lent, and Blessed Carlo is going to be canonized pretty
Yeah.
soon too, which is super exciting. But I think about, Jesus in the garden, you know, um, and he's having a really hard time. I mean, so much so that he's like sweating blood,
Yeah.
and obviously Jesus had the choice to accept the will of the Father or to not.
Yeah.
And I think Jesus, obviously, he's like the prime example for literally everything and anything.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's so great. But yeah, like we can always like turn to Jesus too, and knowing that like he had to go through really difficult things, like
Mm-hmm.
radically difficult things, like
Yeah.
incredibly difficult things that I feel like those words don't even justify what he went through, but he still chose to accept what had to happen to him for us,
Yeah.
and I really think like he again is a prime example. And also, Blessed Carlo Acutis too. He I'm no expert in him by any way, shape, or form, but from the books that I've read on him and from just like different things I've heard about him, as he was, in the hospital, kind of towards the latter end of his life, like he could have been, and I don't know his exact interior experience. I mean, only he does. But from what I've read, it was just unbelievable. The doctors, said that he was just so joyful, that
Wow.
even though he was dying, he was so joyful and still like had such a goodness about him, such a lightness. And wow, like he could have been so mad and so angry. Like, God, like, I love you. Like, I love the Eucharist. Like, I'm building this website for you. Like, why am I here? Like, I
Yeah.
don't know, maybe he did ask that question internally in the silence of his heart. But even if he did, he didn't act upon that. Like instead he was still choosing to like glorify God. Like there is a
Mm.
level of acceptance that he had to go through and that
Yeah.
he did like exhibit because I mean, look at him. Like he's now becoming a saint,
Mm.
and I'm like, wow, like thanks be to God for those like examples too. And like there's still so
Yeah.
many like I even think about our Blessed Mother,
Mm-hmm.
as well. Like when the angel came to her, like I'm pretty sure the angel said, like, do not be afraid. Like, do not
Mm-hmm.
be afraid, Mary. Like, I mean, I'm thinking
Yeah.
if I were in
Yeah.
Mama Mary's shoe, like I'd be a little afraid. you know?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
she accepted. She
Yeah.
accepted,
Mm.
that feeling of fear, perhaps. If the
Mm.
angel said, do not
Wow.
be afraid, she accepted that fear and she acted on her
Mm-hmm.
values.
Yeah.
Blessed Carlo acted on his values.
Mm.
Jesus acted on his value and his extreme love for us.
Yeah. That's
And
great.
so, despite the fears that all of these wonderful people have, all the fears that we as people have,
Mm-hmm.
wonderful, beautiful, beloved sons and daughters,
Mm-hmm.
like, let us never forget that, like, God is always with us. And yes, it might be hard. You might question and ask yourself why, and that's okay too. But remember, acceptance is, can you give yourself permission to kind of invite this perhaps unwanted guest into your house, the interior house of your heart, and say, hey, like, I see that you're here. It's really uncomfortable. I wish you rather weren't here, but I can accept that you're here, no matter how uncomfortable that it makes me feel. And that right there is like a beautiful place for you to catapult into
Yeah.
that abundance that God wants to give you in
Yeah.
your life. Again,
That's beautiful.
certainly not easy. It's
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
lifelong work of work and a journeying and
Hmm.
accompaniment. But I would also like to end with this prayer too that Father Angelus, he's a Benedictine monk in Palermo, California, that I had a
Mm.
wonderful opportunity of speaking with about my own struggles with anxiety. And he gave me this prayer. And I wonder if it's okay if we can,
Yeah.
in,
Absolutely. That'd be great.
so in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, amen. My mind is at peace, tranquil and serene. God is with me today, yesterday, tomorrow, and always. Welcome, Lord. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, amen.
Amen. Awesome. Well, thank you. Yeah, so much, Danielle, and I love even what you're sharing at the end there about Jesus and Mary and Carlos and the saints, and they accept. They accept the cup, right? And with Jesus, it's it's stress. It's the weight of our broken world, even though He's sinless, that He is in some ways taking on our anxieties, right? And same with Mary, and but they say yes, right? They say yes because of the relationship with the Father and that love of the Father, right? With Carlos and the saints, all the things that they go through, all the things we go through, we're also asked to still turn to that relationship with the Father and say, and really being asked, like, do you trust me? You know, like, do you trust my plan? Do you trust that I'm
Mhm.
gonna make all things good?
Mhm.
And so I think, yeah, it's a beautiful example, kind of ending on that of can we, even if it's uncomfortable, even if we're having a hard time accepting, can we still turn back to that, to our relationship with the Father? So thank you for sharing everything you're sharing today, and even from your personal experiences. And
Yeah.
if anybody's watching or listening and wants to get in touch with Danielle, they can go to catholictherapycenter.com and get in touch with her there. Any other things you want to share, or ways to get in contact with you, or is the website good? Yeah,
Website's totally good. Yeah, shoot me an email. It's the best way.
cool, awesome. And we'll have to do this again because this is
Yay!
great. But yeah, thanks again, and thank you everyone for watching or tuning in, and hopefully we'll see you next time. Thanks and God bless. Bye.
Bye.